Good evening. The headlines tonight, the 5th of June. The city of Rome is celebrating its liberation. Allied forces are in full control of the Italian capital following its fall yesterday. British and American bombers are tonight mounting heavy raids on the French coast near Calais. German radio is saying that an invasion is on the way. Princess Elizabeth has made her first public speech.
I should like to assure you that my own interest and my own service will always be given most wholeheartedly.
And Gone with the Wind, the film has closed in London after a record-breaking 4 years and 2 months. Exactly 4 years after Dunkirk, when troops were driven off the continent of Europe, the first major European capital is tonight under Allied control. Rome has been liberated and her people are celebrating. The Fifth Army reached Rome yesterday from the Anzio beachhead. According to reports, Allied forces encountered stiff resistance from the German defenders. But by midnight, that resistance had ended. Rome was in Allied hands. Tonight, the King of Italy, Victor Emmanuel, has handed over his royal powers to his son, Crown Prince Umberto. Mussolini, said to be somewhere in the north of the country, has ordered 3 days' mourning for the fall of the Italian capital.
The battle for Rome was brutal, and it is a famous victory. Before abandoning the Eternal City, as this captured German film shows, Hitler's legions did their utmost to hold the advancing Allies, fighting them grimly to the very outskirts of the capital. But only to the outskirts. Rome itself they have left intact, as promised yesterday by Hitler's headquarters, with its ancient monuments unscarred, a jewel of a city whose war-weary inhabitants erupted with joy as the Americans swept in. The reception was everywhere delirious. General Clark, the Fifth Army commander, drove in for a personal look. In one suburb, his troops encountered a wedding party. They'd set the day, and that was that. Crowds swarmed to the Vatican, to St. Peter's Square, for a blessing by Pope Pius, who thanked both Germans and Allies for sparing the city. Popular response was heartfelt. General Clark reported more than 20,000 Germans taken prisoner. Berlin radio, glossing over the defeat, said Rome does not matter. But it had done until German troops began their withdrawal a few days ago, a pullout covertly filmed by an anti-fascist Italian. They were abandoning not just one of the Axis capitals, but a strategically vital road and rail junction, abandoning too what General Clark termed untold quantities of battle equipment. So, while Romans rejoiced, most of them, at the liberation of their city, Allied military sources were reporting roads to the north clogged with retreating German columns. Rome celebrates, but Field Marshal Kesselring will be regrouping his battered divisions well north of the city. And as President Roosevelt reminded us trenchantly tonight, ahead lies yet greater effort and fiercer fighting on the long road to Berlin.
Once again, through the day and tonight, large numbers of British and American aircraft have been attacking German installations along the northern coast of France. The attacks are understood to be concentrated around Calais and Boulogne in the Pas de Calais.
In round-the-clock, wave-on-wave airstrikes, Allied bombers have kept up their fantastic pounding of the French Channel coast. Overnight, 260 RAF Halifaxes and Lancasters bombed German gun batteries, 3 in the Calais area and 1 in Normandy, the targets marked by low-flying RAF Mosquitoes. Today, up to 750 US flying Fortresses and Liberators, escorted by Mustang and Thunderbolt fighters, followed up the British assault and piled into the Pas de Calais area and targets further west. After many days without loss, a handful of US planes were today down by heavy anti-aircraft fire visible from the Kent coast. But again, it was a no-show by the Luftwaffe's fighters. Today's air missions, as during the past 50 days, targeted what the Germans call their Atlantic Wall. This interlinked system of beach defences and deadly crossfire positions so vaunted by Hitler stretches from the Pyrenees to Norway. It's believed to be strongest, however, between Le Havre and the Low Countries. With the white cliffs of Dover visible across the Channel, Field Marshal Rommel is shown here with Hermann Göring inspecting the wall's defences. Rommel reportedly has been ordered in by the Führer to go all out in the Pas-de-Calais defences to stop dead any attempt by the Allies to invade there. Most of the Atlantic Wall fortifications have been constructed by forced labour from occupied countries, including many Russian prisoners of war. Tonight's Allied raids on German defences in the Pas-de-Calais have strengthened speculation about the location of the expected landings on the continent.
German radio is reporting tonight that an invasion, as they're calling it, is coming, and that the Allied air offensive has switched from Germany to the Channel coast. In the United States, millions of radio listeners were told that the Allied armies had begun to invade the north coast of France. Church bells tolled, church services, films and sporting events were interrupted with the news, and the American telephone service briefly went haywire. But it was a false alarm, the result of a mistake in the London newsroom of the Associated Press. Joan Ellis, a British telegraphist in London, had fed the wrong piece of tape into a teletype transmitter, which flashed news of an invasion to the States. The information was cancelled 5 minutes later, but not before it had had a dramatic effect. Home again, more than 600 servicemen, many of them prisoners of war in Germany during the last 4 years, have docked at Liverpool. They've been repatriated because of illness or injury, and men of the Royal Army Medical Corps went out to bring them safely home.
The Grips Home announces the arrival at Liverpool of 638 men who left these shores 4 years ago and have survived both battle and the horrors of German prisoner of war camps. There was a warm homecoming for British soldiers who in the early days of war had tried to save Norway or had fought in Greece or through the siege of Tobruk. There were the sick and the maimed amongst them, but many counted themselves lucky to be alive.
Where were you captured? I was captured in Greece. In Greece, eh? And you've been a prisoner quite a long time then? Oh, look, too long. But we want to tell you...
These men, listening to the speeches of welcome, had been exchanged for 4 trainloads of German prisoners. The swap took place at Barcelona. The returnees described conditions behind barbed wire in Germany as grim, especially in Warburg, known as a Nazi hell camp. But things had gradually improved as the Germans realised they were losing the war.
And what do you think of the Jerry? Do you think he sort of... Does he realise he's losing, or does he still think he's winning?
Well, the ones we were getting back from the Russian front were only too pleased to be back.
Yeah,
they all seem to think that about this spring, it's all over.
The family of the aptly named Corporal Luck were overjoyed. They'd had almost no news of him for 4 years. The repatriation of this small band is a hopeful sign that soon perhaps others like Corporal Luck will be returning home.
Princess Elizabeth has made her first public speech. She was in Hackney in East London, where she was made the president of a hospital named after her mother, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital for Children. The formality of her election over, the princess, now 18 years old, rose to address the crowded room.
Lord Islet, ladies and gentlemen, I should like first to thank you all very much for the kind welcome you have given me today as your new president. And especially Lord Islet and Hillchild for what they have said in proposing my election. As the first act of my presidency, I should like to assure you that my own interest and my own service will always be given most wholeheartedly to what we all know to be a great cause.
The princess then toured the wards and chatted to nurses and children. Other home news now. The Minister for Information, Mr Brendan Bracken, has urged the BBC not to be afraid of politicians and to be more controversial. Speaking at a lunch in London, Mr Bracken said the BBC should not be intimidated by what he called political publicity hounds. At the same luncheon, to mark the 50th anniversary of the Promenade concerts, their creator, Sir Henry Wood, invited the BBC to become the curator of the concerts. Sir Henry, who was celebrating his 75th birthday, said he hoped with all his heart that the BBC would continue the Proms as a permanent annual institution for all time. The Labour MP, Mr Aneurin Bevan, has said he is prepared to resign his Ebervale seat and recontest it over the bill which makes strikes illegal. At a rally near Bolton, Mr Bevan said, once the worker has given up his right to strike, he has given up practically all he has got. The right to strike is what we are fighting for, he said. And speaking in Trafalgar Square, the actress Dame Sybil Thorndike has called for equal pay for women. Dame Sybil said the concept that a woman should be paid less than a man for doing the same job is almost prehistoric. The quads born 2 days ago in Lewisham, southeast London, are all making good progress. Their father, leading aircraftman Thomas Nee Robinson, has been granted a special 24 hours leave by the RAF to visit them. Mrs Nee Robinson will receive an extra £2 10 shillings a week from the RAF to look after the children. They're the 5th set of quads to be born in Britain in the past 12 months. The film Gone with the Wind, which it had been predicted would run all through the war, is ending its London run after 4 years and 2 months. GWTW, as it's become known, has become the film epic of the war years.
So many people wanted to see Hollywood's greatest spectacle that when it opened in London, performances began at breakfast time. Even during the worst raids of the Blitz, the fans stood firm. No one was going to give up his place in the queue. The film opened in America just as the war opened over here. Vivien Leigh joined her fellow stars Clark Gable and Olivier de Havilland at the premiere in Atlanta, where this epic of the American Civil War reached its fiery climax. During its London run, one fan was so enthralled by the burning of Atlanta that when she emerged from the Empire in Leicester Square and saw a red sky over the London docks, she thought for a moment she was still in the Old South, not in the middle of an air raid. Clark Gable has changed roles and costume. He's in the Army Air Force now, training to be an air gunner. Vivien Leigh is the Prime Minister's favourite film actress. Gone with the wind up is what we used to say about those who left the country when the war began. Not Miss Leigh. She and her husband, Mr. Laurence Olivier, are part of the war effort.
A senior American soldier has been demoted and sent home for careless talk at a cocktail party in London. Major General Henry Miller, Commanding General of the 9th Air Force Service Command and a former classmate of General Eisenhower, is said to have talked loosely about the approximate date of an Allied invasion of Europe. The Ministry of Information has renewed its warnings about the dangers of careless talk with this film.
Lovesick John Jones met indiscreet Mary Brown in a cafe. He said to her,
"Let's go to Coombewood for a picnic on Saturday, Mary."
She said to him,
We can't do that, silly. It's closed to the public. There's a dump of our new mine detectors there.
the consequence was,
They're right overhead now, Centre.
Looks like the wood's going to get it.
and the world said,
That's your fault, Mary. It's more important than ever nowadays not to indulge in careless talk.
And finally, the weather forecast for tonight. The strong southwesterly wind, which has been sweeping the Straits of Dover all day, moderated tonight. The wind has dropped. The English Channel is calmer and the cloud base is higher. The glass is steady. And that's the news tonight, the 5th of June, 1944. From the BBC, good night.